Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rebecca Hauer. I am the Knowledge Exchange Manager here at YouthREX's, and I'm your host today. Today is part 2 of our evaluations webinar series. In today's webinar, we're going to introduce you to our customized evaluation supports and walk you through our service delivery model. From our service pledge to our discovery meetings to the development and implementation of an evaluation service plan, we'll share how we ground values in practice in order to support the evaluation of more than 70 youth programs across Ontario. So today we're joined by several of our members of our evaluation team. We have Dr. Jessica Weiss, who is our Senior Manager of Evaluation here at YouthREX. She oversees most of the aspects of the CES programs. We also have Lisa Barrowben, who is the manager of the Eastern Hub. She is located at Carleton University. She works with Sarah Todd, who presented last week. And we're also joined by Vivian Oystrick, who is the manager at Northeastern at Laurentian University. Vivian works with Diana Kohalik. So that's us, but before we get started, I thought we'd do a quick poll to see who's in the room. So are you a CES partner? Are you interested in CES? Are you a funder? Are you a sector capacity builder? Or are you a frontline youth worker? Let us know. Great, the results are coming in. We have a lot of people interested in CES. That's great. And a lot of people who are curious. A couple of funders and some other people who do capacity building. All right. Most people are interested in CES and seeing if this will work for them. Okay, so let's tell you a bit more about CES. First, I'll tell you a bit more about YouthREX. YouthREX was founded just over a year ago. We are part of the Ontario Youth Action Plan. We're funded by the Ministry of Child and Youth Services to provide supports to grassroots and youth-led organizations to help and to support them to integrate knowledge and evaluation into the development and delivery of our youth programs. Our service streams, we have 3: knowledge mobilization, which is what the webinar is part of, capacity building, which are our workshops, online courses, and critical youth work, of course. Our critical youth work course is running right now in the Eastern Hub, and it will be running again at the end of June in Northwestern Hub, and also starting again in the Central Hub, also in July. So look forward to that. But today we're talking about our customized evaluation support. We call this CES for short, so for the rest of the webinar we'll be saying CES, and that's what we'll be talking about. So this is part of our evaluation webinar series, and I thought I'd just do a recap of our last webinar, the first in our series that launched this, where we were joined by Dr. Uzo Anucha, Dr. Sarah Todd, and Dr. Harjeet Badwal, who discussed our overall evaluation framework and some of the things that we thought about. So in that webinar, we talked about why we believe that evaluation is important for youth programs. It'll help youth programs to better understand, track, and improve the work that we're doing. It will help to figure out how we can further develop our programs, help us to understand our impact, and it helps us to be able to tell our stories to our funders and to each other, to share with each other, so that we can make visible the work that we're doing. We also referred last time to the report that we've just released called Beyond Measure. It was the first of its kind. It was a mixed methods study of the evaluation capacity across the Ontario youth sector. And we had, I'll just mention some of the key findings. We had 5 key messages that came out. I'm sharing these again because all of these relate back to our CES service, and we're drawing on our research to be able, it informs our services. So one of our findings was that the youth sector understands the benefits of evaluation and people are actually enthusiastic about it. However, there's a rather urgent need for evaluation to be less burdensome and more efficient. There's also a need for evaluation to deepen organizations' understanding of their own programs. So what we've framed it as, evaluation can help inform strategic learning. This means that we want to go beyond evaluation that is just for writing reports, but that evaluation is used to inform our program development. We also learned that youth involvement in evaluation is important across the sector, so learning how to do this is something that we all need to work on together. And we also learned that the grassroots youth sector is distinct from mainstream organizations and requires a different kind of support, a distinct understanding, and perhaps different approaches that the grassroots youth sector faces a different set of needs or has a different set of needs than mainstream organizations. So we keep these in mind when we developed our CES service. We also presented last time on our framework for evaluating youth well-being. I'll just briefly review it. Our evaluation managers use this model. It informs the way that we deliver our services, but basically there's 3 key phases. 1 is discovery, 2 is the action phase, and 3 is the legacy phase. In the discovery phase, we start to understand what the program's goals and outcomes are. We do logic modeling. In the action phase, we make an evaluation plan, we collect evidence, we interpret it, and then in the legacy phase, we share it both internally and externally. Our framework is also guided by 3 lenses. Learning focus, which means, again, that we're interested in how the evaluation findings can be applied to our program to be able to to improve them, to increase our impact and deepen our outcomes. We also are really invested in youth being engaged in the process for a whole variety of reasons. And we also are interested in using contextualized methods. This means that we recognize the limitations inherent in each of the methods, and that we hope that by using different methods, we get a fuller picture of what the work that's happening in your organizations. So keep these things in mind. This is the background. These are the pieces that inform how we have developed our CES services. And that's what we're talking about today. So at this point, enough of me. I'm going to turn it over to the people who actually do the work. And first up, I'd like to turn it over to Jessica Weiss.
All right, great. Thanks, Rebecca. So what are customized evaluation supports? CES is YouthREX's service funded by the Ontario Ministry of Children and Youth Services and is aimed at supporting the evaluation journeys of grassroots youth serving and youth-led initiatives across the province. CES provides free one-on-one support, resources, and capacity building on evaluation and related activities. So we want to support organizations to better understand, track, measure, and share the outcomes and impact of their programs. And we hope that the insights gained through relevant and accessible evaluation processes will help strengthen youth programs and the well-being of youth in our communities. So while working with organizations, YouthREX adheres to our CES service pledge that reflects 6 standards. The first is that we will meet your organization where your evaluation capacity is. While grassroots organizations share many similarities, we recognize that they are all unique. They have different histories, work in different contexts, and have staff with varying capacities. And we are committed to designing evaluation plans that are contextual and reflective of these realities. 2, we will be responsive to your organization's evaluation needs. We will always have usability in mind when working with you and develop an evaluation process that will generate insightful and usable results for organizations. The third is that we'll work collaboratively with you and your organization to co-create evaluation processes for your organization. Although we will work to support organizations to understand, measure, and share their impacts, we know that we are not the experts of their particular program. They are. And this is why CES is ultimately a shared process with evaluations being developed collaboratively. There we go. So the fourth is that we will adhere to high ethical standards. We have received ethics approval through each partner university. This ensures that participants are protected and have rights in the evaluation process. For example, participation is always voluntary, confidential, and anonymous. Participants can withdraw at any time. Additionally, we aim to hold ourselves not only to academic standards of ethics, but community standards as well. This means that we are attentive to cultural context of the program evaluation, and our processes strive for sensitivity and inclusion. The fifth is that we will help your organization meaningfully engage youth in evaluation processes. YouthREX is committed to evaluation processes and methods that include the experience and voices of all Ontario youth. We actively work with organizations to encourage and support youth participation at all stages of the evaluation. And the final is that we will listen and listen more. We do our best to listen to what organizations and youth are saying in order to support them through their evaluation journey. This also means that we seek critical feedback throughout the evaluation process so that we can reflect and revise our approach to get better and do better. So next, we will walk through the 6 steps of our CES process. We will start with an overview of the application, review, and acceptance process. This will be followed by a discussion of the discovery phase, where we do a pre-evaluation checkup and co-develop a logic model with organizations. The action phase comes next, where we develop and then implement an evaluation service plan. Following data collection and analysis, we then work with organizations to mobilize key learnings from the evaluation to improve their program and communicate their evaluation findings to their stakeholders. And we know that step-by-step processes don't always work perfectly or in sequence in real life. This model is really just a guide to give you an idea of what the CES process generally looks like.
Even though this is a process, the work often begins well before an application comes in from an organization. Community engagement is a key aspect to this work, where relationship building is happening. As a hub manager, I do my best to meet the youth serving community at large meetings, and also as an organization to meet them where they're at. Maybe I'll walk them through the process of application, or maybe an application's already come in and I follow up with a phone call to find out a little bit more. When I meet them in the community, I have an opportunity to explain how this will work and what an application actually entails. Often applicants also come from a referral source from someone I've met or worked with in the community in the past. Who can apply and basic eligibility requirements are what I get asked to explain most often. Sometimes it may seem that organizations might not qualify due to their funding structure because they're core funded. However, they host a program that may have arose out of grassroots needs, out of specific call from the organization and the young people that they serve. So, especially when it's initiated by young people, that is something that definitely fits very well into our criteria. As an example from my work, so here in the Eastern Hub, I work with a few community health centers, and they run youth drop-in programs. Those youth drop-in programs definitely came out of a need, and because they're not funded directly by the same stream that funds the organization as a whole, they actually have to apply for grants. They're not core funded as a program. So, for instance, that program would get approval. When I talk to somebody about our services, I let them know that they can apply online, and then the applications are assessed. This prompts a notification to the organization and the hub manager, so me, that an application is approved or rejected. If they are rejected, an ineligibility email is prompted. Oops, unfortunately, you may not be eligible for our free customized evaluation supports. If this is the case, you're welcome to explore other options with us. These 2 main options are a fee-for-service evaluation support. So if your organization has the funds to support evaluation, we might be able to help. Let us know so that we can continue that conversation. Or you might be also interested in our capacity building programming. This includes free courses, workshops, webinars, and more. Depending on what your organization's needs are, we may be able to help you through our capacity building stream.
All right, great. Thanks, Lisa. So the second step is welcome. So once we determine that an organization is eligible for free CES, they complete a survey where they tell us a bit more information about the youth they work with, their funding sources, staff, and other program details relevant to the evaluation. Organizations then complete an evaluation capacity survey where they answer questions about their organization's current culture and practice around evaluation, level of commitment and support for evaluation, and also the level of knowledge and experience with evaluation. This information serves a dual purpose. It helps us customize the evaluation to suit their particular capacities, and when looking at the data across all of the programs, it helps us understand the capacity of grassroots youth serving, the grassroots youth serving sector as a whole.
So next, the hub manager in your region would book a meeting, which we refer to as a Discovery Meeting 1. And the purpose of the meeting is for us to get to know each other a little bit better and to gain a shared understanding of your organization's capacity to do an evaluation. The discussion in this meeting will focus on your organization, its evaluation goals, your comfort with evaluation, and your organization's experience with various aspects of evaluation. This meeting will also give your organizational staff an opportunity to ask any questions about YouthREX's processes or the framework for evaluating youth well-being. For example, some of the questions I will be asked during this meeting are, who does your program serve and how many? What is the purpose of your program? What are some of the activities that your program offers? And what is the history behind your program? Some other considerations will be given to who the program stakeholders are, who your funders are, and what you think they might want to know about your program, and what you think they might want to do with the results of the evaluation. We'll also help you start think about who should be a part of your evaluation team and how youth can play a part in the evaluation process. For example, are there youth at your organization who are leaders and eager to become involved? Perhaps those youth can be part of the evaluation team as well. Lastly, we'll talk to you about your existing program strengths for evaluation and data management and how we at YouthREX can help build on those strengths. Your organization may already have some systems in place for data collection, and we'd be happy to review those with you. These discussions are just starting and will be carried forward and reviewed all the way through the action phase of the evaluation process, which we will be discussing shortly.
Thanks, Vivian. So the next part is a discovery meeting 2. After we've collected all of that rich information from you, we then get together in a discovery meeting with your evaluation team where we'll develop a logic model. So we meet with your team and stakeholders to develop and or reflect on your program theory so that we can all move forward with a common understanding of the outcomes your programs want to accomplish for youth and your work and the youth that you work with. The hope is that we have assembled a diverse team to go through the logic model facilitation. In working with the Pathways to Education program, we had one of the best sessions because we had 3 youth, 1 staff who had been a youth in the program, and a program facilitator and an administrator. So it was quite diverse. Each member could bring a different perspective to the program. Seeing all the colorful Post-it notes around the room also helped the team to see just how much their program actually did and the type of impacts that those young people felt that they actually had. After this meeting, we can then go back and begin building or adjusting the logic. This is where we'll also work back and forth with the organization to fine-tune the model. Through this process, everyone learns more, and because the logic model is built collaboratively, there is a lot of richness and meaning to this tool. A continuing conversation about the evaluation methods to be used would also happen here. So we might actually talk about what specific methods you like to use in our next step. And our next step where we would really start to craft an evaluation service plan. This is our action phase. In this action phase, we begin by working on this evaluation service plan in keeping with the processes from Discovery Meeting 1 and Discovery Meeting 2. We continue working in a collaborative manner where we share the documents back and forth for input from the organization. This is also helping to build the capacity of the organization and helping us to really learn more and more about your program. We often start the ESP by looking at the program documents and grant proposals an organization already has. From this, we begin the evaluation service plan process, which has an overall goal of fleshing out evaluation methods, timelines, and processes. At this stage, it's important to refine the specific evaluation questions to be answered during this process.
So the action phase, let's do this. One of our goals at YouthREX's is to assist organizations and programs in collecting data that provides rich and contextual insights about program processes and impact. To do this, our framework recommends a multi-method approach to data collection. There is rarely a single evaluation methodology that can fully capture all the complexities of how programs operate in the real world. For this reason, we try to find creative ways to combine different tools and techniques to help answer your evaluation questions. Using both quantitative and qualitative forms of inquiry allows us to capture the most accurate picture of both the intended and unintended outcomes of your interventions. It also adds validity and credibility to the findings. For example, here in the Northeast, we are working with a local drop-in center for youth. As part of their evaluation plan, we developed a survey that asked questions about program processes and outcomes. But in addition to that, we helped develop an interview guide that would facilitate a focus group for 4 of the youth that have been accessing the program for some time. The focus group helped provide more in-depth understanding of the youth's experience within the program and added some rich data for us to use in the evaluation. We also helped them develop a feedback form that they could use to collect important information about the youth's experience ongoing. I'd also like to take a minute to talk about some of the guiding questions of the YouthREX's data collection process. Some of those are data collection methods relevant and culturally sensitive? Do the instruments consider the cultural context of the respondents? And does the evaluation meaningfully engage youth participants? This is of particular importance for programs and organizations in the Northeast and in the northern regions of Ontario, where we serve a diverse population of Francophone and Aboriginal youth. It's very important to look at standardized tools and ensure that they are youth-friendly and culturally appropriate. We can also help provide you with some creative ways to meaningfully engage the youth in the data collection and analysis process as well.
Thanks, Vivian. This is Rebecca. I'll jump in here. The last step of our CS process is more of a KM step, and that's the department that I work in. So I'll talk a little bit about what we'll do in the legacy phase. So in the legacy phase, we reflect on what we learned in our evaluation, and we develop a strategy for sharing what we learned both with our internal and with our external stakeholders. And each of these processes will take different strategies. So we really believe that an evaluation journey does not have to end with the report that you submit to a funder. Ideally, we'll be able to use the results from your evaluation as an opportunity to re-engage stakeholders and to create opportunities to work with them, to make meaning about what did we learn and how can we use that to improve our program. It builds capacity across your stakeholder group. In order to share most effectively, we also consider our audience. So, for example, while traditionally evaluation results are in report form, they don't have to just be in report form. There are a whole bunch of creative ways that you can use to mobilize what you've learned. It can really be an opportunity for engagement. A traditional report form isn't accessible to all of your stakeholders. For example, a youth would likely not read your evaluation report. Your community stakeholders may not have the time either. So you can consider pulling together community forums, workshops, infographics, fact sheets, using data visualization, make postcards, write blogs, or a whole variety of ways of getting the message out there about what you learned and for inviting people into the story of your work. So the legacy phase is a time to communicate what you have achieved and learned along your evaluation journey. It's a chance to have a conversation with your invested stakeholders about the impact of your work. You can work with your stakeholders then to develop strategies to apply what you have learned in the service of continuous program improvement. So the legacy phase is about more than just communicating your findings. It's about figuring out what you can do with what you've learned and how you can use that information to showcase, inspire, and celebrate.
So now that the evaluation is complete, we hope that the organization has enjoyed working with us and that they understand that evaluation is a tool that can be used with a little more ease and that they learn more than when they started. Staying connected is another really important part of this. Attend capacity building workshops, knowledge mobilization events, sit on a community of practice with us. Staying connected also helps to maintain the relationship of learning where we can still support evaluation needs. This is also where an organization might apply to go through the evaluation process again with another program that might meet that criteria. This process will be easier now that we already understand so much about you. They'll be getting to know your program, but less about your capacity because it's something that we've managed to build together.
So, my final thoughts is that I'd like to say that some evaluation is much better than none. In the Northeast, we often hear how under-resourced and overworked organizations and programs in the youth sector are. The evaluation process does not need to be an all or nothing thing. We can assist your organization and program in developing an evaluation plan that is realistic for you and that isn't all-consuming. We can help you take some small steps towards evaluating that may already enhance what you are doing, but that won't be extremely time-consuming, but rather they'll be easy and manageable.
Some of my final thoughts, this presentation has been quite linear. There's a lot of steps involved. However, it's not as linear as it sounds. It's just a framework for us to work with. Sometimes an opportunity, for instance, might present itself that you can collect data, but we haven't quite gotten to the evaluation service plan. So we might have done your first and second discovery meeting, but so an example I can give from my own work is I've worked with an organization who had a conference quickly approaching, and there were going to be, there was an opportunity to do a comics jam with 100 young people. So we actually collected data before we went into our evaluation service plan. So it's not, we're not adhered to all of these steps. They're a good framework for good work, but it's something that we can also work with. That's the customized part of the customized evaluation supports.
Sorry, was someone going to jump in?
So I have another final thought.
Okay.
It's doing with rather than doing for. And we really want to work with you and your organization at every step of the evaluation process. We not only want to help you achieve your goals, but we also want to help you build capacities so that you can sustain the evaluation process ongoing. So rather than coming in and telling you what we think you should do, we'd like to find out what it is that you'd like to do and help provide some guidance and recommendations along the way.
I think sometimes, Vivian, what I've heard in my area too is sometimes that's really difficult because a lot of organizations are really they're struggling with being able to dedicate so much time to work with us. And I think what is really important for organizations to remember is that it's at your pace. It doesn't have to be, we don't have that pace for you. You set that pace as an organization and how much time you can commit to it. And I think sometimes what I've heard is that the scary part is we don't know how to do this. We need your help. So I think sometimes there's a tension that we want to do with, but at the same time, you know, there's a hard time with some organizations not really knowing where to even start with that. So we're here to work with you as coaches wherever you're at, and I think that's definitely, and I think each of our hubs are a little bit different that way too.
Great, thanks everyone. At this point, I'd like to open it up to questions. So just a reminder to people that there's a question box, and that's where you can type in your questions. We have several questions that have come in already. I think that we've touched on some of them in our presentation, but I'll share them again just so that we can reinforce them. One question is, how grassroots does an organization have to be to access YouthREX's services?
I think I can answer that, and I think I was trying to answer that in when I'm looking at an organization, I'm really looking at the program that they're doing, and I think the funding piece is crucial. So if there's core funding or if there's a funding structure that allows for evaluation services already built in, then that's where we wouldn't really be coming in. But if your funding is something that's more precarious and something that you have to keep applying for, and you know, as long as it fits within that criteria of serving young people within the age group and so on, then I think that is where we would definitely, those are our basic parameters. You know, as much youth-focused, youth-led as possible, so as many young people that you have actually contributing to your organization, that's also another consideration, but the funding structure is really key there.
Thanks, Lisa. Another question is also, I think, Lisa, you touched on this in your slide, so I'll see if you want to take this question, is what are the timelines to do an entire evaluation through this whole multi-step process? Someone is thinking about scheduling for the year and what kind of resources they would need to allocate. They're asking, is it a year? Is it less? Is it more? What are the kinds of things that affect timelines?
So our agreement is a year, but if it's not finished within a year, then, you know, we can re-sign that agreement and keep working together. Sometimes it takes less, and again, that's a customized part of it. It depends on the organization's needs. Some organizations actually need these evaluations to be completed a little bit quicker, and then we have to sort of, it's up for negotiation. We negotiate that back and forth. What resources do we have to provide to get it done as quick, and you know, we try to get it done in as timely a fashion as possible. I have an organization that really needs their data collection done before the middle of June, so we're going to swoop right into data collection phase very quickly.
Does anyone else want to add anything to that question about timelines?
And just to add to what Lisa said, I have a very similar experience here in the Northeast. I have 2 programs that I'm working with that have had to relocate all of a sudden. So we've had to put things on hold because it's just not an appropriate time for them to look at evaluating because they're getting settled into their new program home. But that being said, I have a new client who also needs some data collected rather quickly. So we're taking this opportunity to focus on their priorities while the other programs are getting settled and organized, and we will be done assisting this particular program by the time they're settled, and we can pick up where we left off with the other programs. So it really depends on where you're at and what's happening, and we want to be very sensitive to what is going on with your program or organization at the time. So to be as flexible as possible. So.
Right. Thanks so much. Yeah, and what I've heard from working with working alongside the CES managers is that those 2 things, that the CES service plan really meets the organization where they're at. So we develop a program based on your needs, but then also we recognize that grassroots, especially grassroots youth organizations, often lack the capacity to move forward. If things come up, when you have a person who's the executive director and the frontline worker and the grant writer, the other things take priority at different, you know, times for them. And so if they're not able to respond, then you're not done with our we don't conclude our service with you. We just put you on pause, and when you're ready to re-engage, we re-engage. I have another question here that is about an organization that runs multiple programs, and they're wondering about logic models. So here's the question. We are an organization that runs multiple programs on an annual basis. Will the CES program support us in coming up with a logic model that can be applied to all of our programs and help us come up with strategies on how we adapt the model to each program when necessary? So multiple programs, 1 logic model, multiple strategies.
So I've had it come up with multiple programs and organizations I've worked with, and what we've done is we've done an application for each program. Because a logic model really, you have different outcomes that you need for each program, so you want to measure that. You could have an overarching logic model, but to capture all of the details you want to, it might be better to actually have a separate logic model for each program. And the getting to know you in discovery phase might be a whole lot quicker because it might be more of one process for all of those programs, but then the logic model piece, we'd have an evaluation service plan for each piece. Some of the pieces are more sped up because we have the opportunity to have the program description altered, but the organization is the same.
Right, and then taking our CES service model, would the same model be applied to each of the programs?
The same model, but it might be, so we might do an intense discovery meeting 1 and 2 for one program, and then the other ones, discovery meeting 2 would be where we would do more tweaks and so on for each logic model. So I think it would be a longer process, but at the same time, it wouldn't be as onerous for each process.
Mm-hmm. Right. The same person wrote in a qualifying question about if CES work is able to evaluate. So they want to do program restructuring. They're restructuring their entire program model to support stronger programming throughout all their sites. Can the CES model work with us on how to evaluate a restructuring process, or is it only applicable to programs?
That's something I don't have any experience with, so I don't know if somebody else has experience with that they'd like to answer.
I haven't experienced that yet either. We are working with one program that's looking at, reviewing the content and the objectives of the workshops, and we're helping them with that, but that's a little bit different than what this person's asking. So
okay, so for these kinds of questions, we will compile all of the questions and we'll respond online for the series recap. So we'll get back to you on that one. Okay, another question that we have concerns accessibility of rural communities. This person is asking, is the first meeting on the phone or in person? The northern area is quite vast.
I can speak. Wherever and whenever possible, we would have the discovery meeting one in person and come to your work site, and then have a discussion around what you're most comfortable with moving forward. Obviously, depending on where you're located within the region, we may be able to have more face-to-face contacts than other people, or maybe we can look at every other meeting being face-to-face and then using another form of communicating in between. But definitely, wherever, whenever possible, I meet my clients on site for the discovery meeting 1 and 2. So
I can add.
Sure, go ahead, Lisa.
I can add a little bit to that too, because Eastern Ontario has a mixture of urban and rural. And for some rural clients, I've met over the phone, especially for the first discovery meeting. We record the first discovery meeting, so it's recorded over the phone, and we just have to make sure that our phone connection is pretty good. But again, like Vivian, I do have the preference of meeting in person when we can and we come out to you, but we can do that first discovery meeting over the phone and then try our best to arrange our discovery meeting 2 in person. But technology is wonderful, and we can find ways to make whatever we can work.
This person also shares where they're located. They're in Muskoka, so they're wondering who their YouthREX's rep would be.
I think that might be me.
Yeah, I think that's Eastern Hub.
Call me.
So there are several questions here about logic models. People asking, what is a logic model? Can you explain what we do for a logic model? There are just multiple questions about logic models, which makes me think that we need a webinar just on program theories and logic models. But I wonder if one of you could take a little bit of time to describe a little bit more what a logic model does for an organization, and then we can commit to also. We have a workshop on logic modeling, but which is running, so you can check out when our workshops are, but we can also commit to doing a webinar only on logic models or program theory. So could someone talk about what a logic model is and does?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So most of the programs that I've worked with in the Northeast, many of them have not heard of the term logic model prior to becoming involved with YouthREX's, so it's not uncommon for people to have not heard about it. So essentially I find it's most easily explained as a visual representation of your program, what it is that you're putting into your program in terms of resources, and what you are producing as far as activities. Along with that is who exactly you are servicing, and then what you expect to see over the short, medium, and long term. So essentially, if you put this into your program and you do this for these people, this is what you expect to see. Does that make sense? And so within the logic model, you'll have very specific outcomes or indicators saying that you know you've accomplished that because you've seen this. Does that make sense?
I often refer to it as a map for your program as well. It's something that is going to be that picture that shows you, this is where you want to go, and this is what you're going to do to get to where you want to go. It's not, I think sometimes we overthink it and make it more complex than it is, but that's what we're here to do, is to help. We do the overthinking part, and you tell us what it is, and then we will try to work together to make something really cohesive and useful to you. And it's also something that is a living, breathing document, so it can change over time. You may find things that you didn't expect would happen, and then you would go back and you would recraft the model. So it's not something that you do and then put in a drawer and it does nothing. It's something you do and you put up on your wall and you go, am I meeting this? Am I, it's a useful tool for you to every day say, am I actually meeting these outcomes? What are the indicators for these outcomes? Am I meeting them? Do I have to readjust my program, or do I have to readjust my logic model?
I think of a logic model very much as a tool to help a program to understand itself. I mean, you may understand yourself, but a logic model as an exercise helps you to be able to articulate the connections between all the things that you're doing and the kinds of things that you expect to see based on what you're doing. It helps you to describe what you're doing to others who aren't in the work with you. And it also forces you to ask, are my program activities, do I have the resources I need? Are the program activities that I'm doing going to lead in the general direction of the kind of outcomes that the program seeks to achieve? So it's really useful process and tool, as both Vivian and Lisa have shared. We should do a webinar on that. We will. Another question that came up is about ways that we deal with data and support organizations to deal with data. This person is asking a very specific question around data capture. So they're wondering if CES is able to include Google Drive best practices, i.e. supporting electronic capture of data. So it's really kind of a data management question. I'm wondering if Jessica is there, if you have any experience with managing data this way, or could respond to that question.
Hey, yeah, of course. I don't have any experience using that. We mostly just use fluid surveys and online survey tools right now. Nothing is really like cloud-based, I guess, so I can't really speak to that. Sorry.
We'll think about it, though. I think that I'll bring that to our Director of Research and Evaluation, and also the Provincial Academic Director, and we can think about incorporating that. And also we can look at developing workshops around data management as well, because that is a really important piece. One thing to say is that I think I may not, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're just really moving into the data collection phase with a lot of our evaluation partners, because we just launched our services, I don't know, not even a year ago.
And we also have to be really careful with our data collection, because we are adhering to the Tri-Council ethics approvals, and so that's why we specifically have fluid survey in there and those type of data collection tools, and our consent forms and so on. They all have to be adhered to, because those are the highest standards that are accomplished in Canada. So.
Here's a question about how we customize our evaluations. This participant asks or shares that their organization has an evaluation framework, that have a logic model, that have surveys that were all created by a third party, and unfortunately they no longer have the funding to work with that third-party evaluator to do the assessments. Would YouthREX jump on board to assist the next steps following data entry and assessing the information?
I would say yes. If the eligibility criteria is met, then for sure. And we can also be that next set of eyes that looks at, what's working with the surveys, what's not working with the surveys, or go through and make adjustments. Because again, like I said before, these are living, breathing documents. So they're not all set in stone, and maybe you've learned a few things along the way so far that we can then help incorporate those changes.
I would agree with Lisa.
Okay. There's one more question before we will wrap it up. I don't know entirely how to respond to it, but I think I'll give it a shot. The question is, what kinds of qualifications, such as work experience and academic experience, do the evaluators who work at YouthREX have? So in terms of our team, we have an incredible team. All of the hub managers have extensive experience working with youth organizations and do have experience in program development and program evaluation. Everyone participates in on-the-job training and professional development as well. We have all of our services are overseen at the provincial office by Dr. Jessica Weiss, who is exceptional in her field, has years extensive training in evaluation, as does she works with a team, the Director of Research and Evaluation, Alexander Lovell, and Dr. Uzo Anucha, as well as many, many others. So as we like to say here, we feel that our bench is getting pretty deep, and we continue to deepen it. We continue to look for people to join our team who have extensive evaluation experience, and not just extensive evaluation experience. I think that what's important to us at YouthREX is that the evaluators coming on board understand the realities of the grassroots youth sector, are able to work within the context of working with grassroots youth organizations, which is a specific skill set. And we also look for people who have a certain values orientation to the ways that we approach our work. So there are many people out there with, and they're great, who know like technical aspects of evaluation, but we really focus on making sure that we're able to provide evaluation services to our stakeholders, who are primarily grassroots youth organizations. So if there are any more questions, I invite everyone who's on to ask them now. And if you think of a question afterwards, like I often do, just email us, let us know what you're thinking, what your question is, and we'll be happy to respond. We'll also be posting a recap of this webinar and the questions that have been asked publicly as part of the series wrap-up. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions, so I'd like to thank everyone for participating. I'd like to thank our panelists, Lisa, Vivian, and Jessica. Thanks so much, and thank you to everyone for joining us today.